with guns and ammunition too powerful to battle. Death came like a monsoon wind. It came like a flood. It came with earth-shaking force we could not control. Death came under the authority of nations we did not know. It came with men whose absent wives benefited from their husbands' despicable behavior. Death came with men whose children would one day inherit their father's legacy of violence and wealth ill-gained. Death came to strip the land of its glory. It came to thousands and hundreds of thousands without sympathy for our loss. It came with impelled brutality. It came to scatter children's blood-soaked bodies about the earth, thus fertilizing dry, yearning soil. But actually, really, in the end, death simply came to tell us that we were brothers. Always together. It was also devastating. It was our coming. Some were taken by surprise. Some were killed on the spot. Some were taken in their sleep. Some were ambushed in the forest. Some were tricked into believing they were going for a walk. Some were consumed with hatred. Some were caught off guard. Some were inebriated. Some were too lazy to fight. Some were busy settling communal affairs. Some were nursing wounds inflicted by spouses. Some were telling children bedtime stories of talking spiders. Some were beating drums to warn the rest of us. But most of us were not listening. And so when the drums fell silent, it was too late. Our destruction was complete. An entire village destroyed in one solitary cycle of the sun and moon. They destroyed our homes and forced our leaving. They bound us with chains of heavy iron. Elders rendered mute and lifeless. Babies deprived of life's knowing. All we could do was wonder. We did not speak. There was nothing to say. In those moments, we heard our elders' warning and we understood. We knew they loved us now far more than we understood before, but they did not hear our cries, our pleas of lament, not with the ears of the living. So one by one, they took us away. They took the farmers first, those who knew the land, the earth, the ingredients of the soil, those who heard its rumble, felt its movement, understood its seasons. Those who knew seeds and germination, plant spacing and harvest, they took them first. Those who understood that you pay homage to soil before you take fruit from it. They took them first. It was no accident. They would farm again in a new world, feeding a nation committed to their very degradation. And then they took the healers. They were not hard to find. Most days they lingered about the village, repairing bodies and minds too troubled to heal alone. They had learned from us the value of our healers. They knew that without our healers, we were weak, vulnerable people. If they took our healers, they must have assumed, they also took our ability to mend ourselves. And they were right. So they captured our healers that we might not rebound. Villages of frightened, wounded people without medicine, men and women, would take centuries to restore. But they knew this. Their strategy was as calculated as the hyena's attack. Without shaman, who would usher life back into our suffering souls? Who would reassure us that death had not come to stay? Who would cleanse the forest, the land of poisonous energy brought by evildoers? We didn't know. But what we knew was that our wounds would fester a lifetime without someone to cure them. In a day, panic and uncertainty became our way. Our pride deteriorated into fractured, deep-seated insecurities. And after the healers, they took the jolly, that our stories might not be told. And after them, the warriors, that our collective strength might not be diminished. And after them, the artists who told us that we too were beautiful. They chained and muted orators and teachers to stop the flow of inspiration and to abort the belief that we too were God. They murdered gatekeepers on the spot, since at their word, multitudes of angels would have come. And they would have come, but they were never called. And finally, they slaughtered those whose gifts were less visible, although to us no less valuable. Keepers of knowledge, masters of the spirit, gurus of assistance, guardians of order and balance. In the end, they stole away everyone and everything that made us strong. But it was all because when they sounded the drums, most of us were not listening. So we marched quickly. We marched through forests. We marched over hills and valleys. We marched through hot desert land. We marched alongside waterfalls and brooks, which the day before had and quenched our thirst. We marched through high grass. We marched on barren earth. We marched past monkeys dashing in the distance. We marched past giraffes whose frantically swiveling heads told us never to give up the fight. We marched past lions roaring in the distance. We marched past anthills where in fright ants scrambled hysterically. We marched past gardens sprouted but not tilled. We marched past neighboring villages we thought we despised. We marched past sites of rituals where we know spirit possession and healing. We marched past communal huts where government officials met to solve collective dilemmas. We marched past people we didn't know. We marched through regions we had never seen. We marched until some of us died. They were unchained and tossed aside. There are no markers to commemorate them. Of this we are sure. We marched and we marched. From the rising to the setting of the sun, we marched. On our 23rd day at sea, our humming began at a cool, even pace when beats were slow and lulling. It was dark in the depths of that ship, so dark we could not see our hands before our faces. And in that dark, a man heard a dark melody. And then we repeated it. It wasn't a groan from pain and desolation, but deliberate lines of constructed meter and time that jarred our spirits and invited our participation. We didn't know why he was humming, but we knew that we ought to hum along. And so one by one, we joined in the dark, some in the upper registers, some in the depths of the voice, having found the language that needed no words. We hummed until we knew we'd survive. We hummed until we released mothers and fathers whom we never see again. We hummed until our love for and gratitude to each other was clear. We hummed a celebration for living, for fighting, for refusing to die, for enduring when giving up would have been so much easier, for still believing against all odds that we'd get home someday. We hummed our commitment to raise children wherever we went in the way of our people. We hummed that our women slightly above us might know that we had not forgotten them. We hummed. On the 63rd day at sea, we created a ritual, a reminder to the heavens, to the ancestors, that many had died, but there were many more who were living and who were coming. It became a collective ritual, a daily roll call, an announcement of the yet living. Someone would beat his planks like a drum and say his own name 3 times. That was how the ritual began. And then the rest of us would join in, beating our planks with our fists and speaking our names as loudly as we could. We believed that if we screamed loudly enough across space and time, our own ancestors might indeed hear us and free us. And so we called our names. Amani! Coyote! Quincy! Abubakar! Dumi! Atiba! Ambona! Bekutime! Shama! Ogurini! Aiza! Chitope! Ozungwa Rike! Gwena! Osman! Chukwudi! Akitunde! Bosita, Wole, Alatanga Usabakiliko, Temba, Tabase, Nisa, and we called every name of those of us left behind. And we called every name of those left behind until our women above us repeated the ritual with their own names. Tembe! Mamasi! Pepikaye! Ifeitayo! left behind. By the 76th day, we were exhausted. We were tired. The ship had been packed when we left, and now there were spaces everywhere. We wondered only one thing. Would there ever come a day when our own children, or maybe our children's children's children, would wonder if this story were true? Would there ever come a time when we would have to justify how we came, the price we paid? Would our own children, perhaps, or maybe our children's grandchildren, wonder about the beauty and majesty of who we were as African people? We prayed that day would never come. Of course, we did not know. But what we could do now was simply one thing: hold hands, hold them tightly, tightly, call our gods, and believe that just as we've done in one land, we build a nation in another.
Great job.
I guess y'all say, boy, that guy gets around that wheelchair. Y'all can hear me Grady Hospital.
Wow.
They be saying, man, move out the way, here come Bobby, here come Mr. Zaki. You know, I still been going for little appointments on a weekly basis, but things are winding down, but, hey, I get around, you know, you do what you gotta do.